Thanks for joining me today, writers. We're going to talk about what to keep, what to cut, and how to know the difference. So let's jump right in. I want to give you a quick framework today on how you can make decisions on your own and revise your own work with confidence so that you can write forward. Today, we're going to cover genre, target audience, theme, and story mood. First thing I talk about with every writer, with every reader, every time we have a conversation about whether a book is good or bad, I talk about genre. What are the conventions of the genre? Why? What are your audience's expectations when they pick up this book? Because what their expectations are is really going to mold your story. And I have a lot of writers push back on this and say, my writing doesn't fit into any specific genre. But if your writing doesn't fit into any specific genre, I have to stress to you, how is your reader going to find it? They have certain genres that they come to because they're expecting a certain outcome. And if you can't fit your story into a genre, there's no way for them to find your work. There's no way for you to share your work with the world. I also get a lot of pushback from people as I work predominantly with romance writers. I get a lot of people who say that they've written a romance. And I have to say, no, you haven't written a romance because your couple doesn't end up together in the end. You have written a book with or a story with romantic elements. But if your reader comes to the story expecting a romance, expecting that happily ever after, and they read 300 pages and the couple doesn't end up together in the end like they expected, your reader's going to be angry and they are going to go online and rip your story apart and say that it's crap, even when it's not. Your story isn't crap. It's just that they didn't get what they wanted. They didn't get what they came there for. So this is not a question that you can answer for yourself and be done. You need to be joining writers groups. You need to be joining book clubs. You need to really understand what genre is and where your book fits in that genre. It may have a main genre and a subgenre that's perfectly acceptable, happens all the time in the writing world, but we need to know exactly where we would place your book on a bookshelf in order to market it to your readers. And I'm guessing that you're here watching this video because you want a story that you can share with readers and with the world. We're going to talk now about target audience. Target audience is very closely related to genre, but we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about the reader themselves. So the reader of, for instance, a crime novel, something that tends to move very quickly, things are happening very fast, they're not going to have patience for flowery prose and long descriptions. They're not going to want to hear an entire paragraph on the style and color of the wallpaper, for instance. Unless the clue is hidden in the wallpaper, they don't want to hear about the wallpaper at all. Now, if you're a lover of literary fiction, you might be interested in what's happening with the wallpaper. If it pertains to this story, don't just put it in there just because. Now, what we're going to keep? Well, what keeps the audience invested? What keeps you invested when you go to read this genre? If we're talking romance, for instance, we better have a meet cute in the first 10% of that story. If I'm 25% into a romance and the meet cute hasn't even happened, I'm wondering what the heck is going on. Did I pick up the wrong book? Did this get covered or labeled or shelved wrong? What's happening, right? If you're a reader or if your reader goes to a cozy mystery, they're likely interested in things like snappy language, quick dialogue, embracing stereotypes. Whereas a lot of times as writers, we're given the advice not to use stereotypical characters. This is what a cozy mystery reader goes for. They enjoy those things. So don't be afraid to give it to them. Now, theme is where we're really going to spend the bulk of our time today because theme is in every scene. It is such an important part of your story, and it's something that a lot of writers they struggle, to grasp. It's kind of an ephemeral thing. So if theme feels kind of slippery or loosey-goosey to you, you can just think, what's the point of my story? What do I want my reader to walk away from my story knowing about the world or having reinforced in their beliefs in the world? So each scene should illustrate the point of your novel. And when I first heard that advice many years ago as a brand new writer, I thought, Well, that's a really boring book if we're just going to keep reiterating the same thing scene after scene. But that's not really what that advice means. It means there should be a nod towards your theme in every scene. There should be a little nudge. There should be an embracing of that theme. And we're going to build on layer on top of layer until we get to that climactic moment and that resolution where your character has finally learned that theme. So, what are we going to cut? To stay on theme, we're going to cut anything that doesn't personify the point. So when I talk to my writers, I like to encourage them, when you're writing any scene for the first time or when you're going in to edit it anytime, I want you to stop, take a deep breath, and think about how your character could show the world that they are in love with the girl, determined to get this job, desperate to have a child of their own. How can we show it instead of telling it to them? Okay? No need to rhapsodize about the woman's beauty if that's not the point of the scene. She might be a beautiful woman and you might mention it, but don't go on and on about it if that's not the point of the scene. Okay? Often I tell writers, I need you to omit these lines to tighten up your scene or to drive a point home. Often these are their favorite lines in the whole scene, and they, for good reason, give me pushback on that. Often they're my favorite lines in the whole scene, but I'll reassure the writer, I'm not looking for you to get rid of these lines completely. They just don't fit here in this specific point. It's like trying to force the wrong puzzle piece into a place in a puzzle. We're still going to use that puzzle piece. We're just not going to use it right here, right now. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about story mood. So we're going to use specific wording to describe our characters, our time, and our place. Okay, if you're in a 15th century castle, you're going to have different words and a different amount of words than if you're, say, in outer space. Okay, so our character is going to need to know either way what's going on around them, in the time and place, what the character is thinking and feeling. The benefit we have, obviously, in writing books over, say, a play is that inner monologue. So we want to make sure and give just enough of that inner monologue, but we don't want to overdo it. We also want to see what's going on around the character, okay? Especially first person tends to fall into this trap. So I'm not going to go too deep on that because it's not the point of today's lesson, but don't fall into the trap of always being in your character's head. Make sure and turn the camera outward, as I like to say, and show what's going on around them and why they're feeling these feelings and emotions, okay? So as a general rule, we want to tell the story as simply as possible. We don't want complex wording. We don't even want beautiful language. Not yet. It's not that it's not going to be anywhere in your story, but we don't want to confuse our reader and we don't want to overwrite the story. Okay. So I'm a lover of words, obviously, because of what I do for a living. And I don't mind learning a new word or even two new words when I'm reading a book. But if I have to stop every few pages and look up a word, then I start to get frustrated. So let's start off with simple wording. We can add in some beautiful turns of phrase a little bit later, okay? So that's going to get you started on what to keep and what to cut. Feel free to watch this video again if I talked a little bit too fast. I wanted to let you know that over on my Instagram, I have a free 30-minute subtext video linked in my bio that you can go grab and download and watch. And it's kind of an intro to subtext. I do have some earlier videos that I did on YouTube that you can look up where I dive a little bit deeper into subtext if you want to go a bit deeper. But if you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe. Next week, we're going to be talking about how I remove resistance to make writing easier for myself. So come back for that. Hopefully you can pick up some tips there.